Welcome to More Bread, Please. My name is Marcus. I will be your lead server this evening. If you haven't dined with us before, welcome. Tonight's special is me discussing slinging drinks and sloppin food. For dessert, we will discuss some places we have graced our presence with. And as always, my serving partner, Tanya, and then my server assistants tonight are going to be Brenton and Daly. Let's get something going for you. Welcome to the show, guys. How you doing?
Right on.
Hello,
Good to be here.
I know I'm glad you guys are here. You guys are my two favorite people at work, and you guys are like, you're my work wife, and you're just like my work best friend,
We just
dude.
got a good
Work
bro
husband.
thing going, man.
Work husband.
The feeling is mutual. Yes.
Well, I brought you guys on because I know Daly, you have catering experience, and Tanya and I catered together, and then you have bartending experience, and we've all bartended.
Yeah.
Well,
Billy
you
and I
also
worked
have
on the same
bartending.
team for 5-6 years before we came to work at the Palm.
Which is
So
wild.
yeah.
Did you guys like bartend at PF Chang's?
Yeah, we were on the same team for most of the time we were there.
Yeah.
Did you guys meet at PF Chang's?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you were.
I didn't like Brenton at first.
That's true. Austin actually was friends with me before Daly was. That's a
That's
true
funny.
story.
Huh.
Yes.
Weird. I didn't like anyone, to be fair. I hated it. Mostly because I hated my job.
Well, I mean, you did do a lot of bullshit there,
Yeah.
or you got into a lot of bullshit at that place. So how long have you been bartending out of PF Chang's? Because didn't you bartend somewhere else too?
So actually, no. So when I left Chang's, that was the first non-bar position I'd taken in probably over a decade when I came to the Palm. And at the time when I started, they didn't have room for me behind the bar. They ended up needing both of us behind the bar because they didn't have him working back there the first, 3 or 6 months I was there. And after she'd been there for probably almost a year. So yeah, I tried back there for a little while, but you guys see how that bar runs, and it's neither one of our styles. So we both bowed out, and that's why we just serve with you guys on the floor at this job.
And sometimes it's so frustrating because we have to make our own drinks there. And
Yes,
it's like
most of the
the other
time.
night-
Beyond frustrating.
we were back there the other night, and both of you were back there, and you guys were right there in the middle, and we're like, okay, well, I mean, she has a private dining.
Oh my God. I asked Seth for the bar. I had the bar spoon because I was getting the ice cubes out of the thing. And he was like, I'll just wait. I said, don't worry. We're all waiting to make our own cocktails. So you'll be fine.
It's so frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and especially when it's one of those things where like with a margarita, it's really not that hard to just like pour all the ice out of there into
Fresh ice.
Right. It's just like you're just gonna strain this margarita into a cup and then make me put ice in it. Like what? How does that make any kind of
And
sense?
you'll get the first one that has like enough salt to like kill a horse. And then the next one has like 3 pieces. Of
Right,
salt.
literally. Well, and even with the palomas that we do and stuff like that, like they just pour like the base on there and then just like leave it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You could
Anything with
okay.
citrus is supposed to be shaken because that's
Yep.
how the citrus activates
Right.
into the
Yep.
cocktail.
and they just like pour it in there and just like
Mhm.
hope for the best.
Did you bartend in Chicago?
Yeah, so most of my experience before I moved to Nashville, I worked for a bunch of different other chain restaurants for years and years. I did Chili's, I did Don Pablo's when I worked in Indianapolis.
I forgot about Don
Yeah.
Pablo's, dude. That place is closed.
I worked for an Uno's Pizza in Indianapolis, which was one of the worst serving jobs I've ever had.
Sounds like Uno's pizza.
It was,
Sounds
and it was a
That sounds
franchise that was
horrible.
just run into the ground when I worked there. I mean, they were turning over people left and right, front and back of house. But yeah, so I worked behind the bar there as well. And then Chili's was probably my longest until I came to Nashville, and then I worked for Chang's.
Chili's.
And
That makes
then-
me gag. I can't
Yeah,
stand.
Cooper's
I can't
Hawk.
stand Chili's.
God,
I
could you
can't either
imagine if you
anymore.
transferred to the Chili's down here? Oh, no.
Originally, that was the plan, and then I ended up kind of had a situation like yours where I was kind of ousted by the company on some bullshit, and then
For the
I found a
better.
different job for the last 8 months before I moved to Nashville.
A good job, too.
I did, yeah. Cooper's Hawk almost
So-
got me in Chicago.
When did you start bartending, Daly?
My first bartending job was in Chattanooga at the Boathouse
Oh,
on Amnicola Highway.
Is that the one with the raw bar?
It had a raw bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were responsible for shucking all the oysters, making all the handmade guac.
Wow.
Oh
we
my
did
God.
all the mussels to order. All the bartenders did all this.
oh my!
Yeah, it was crazy.
And our bartenders, they got a lot of shit.
Yeah, it was wild. We ran a full like pantry station out of
Yeah.
a bar.
Oh
Holy
my.
shit.
Mhm.
That sounds absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had like a little stovetop that we had to cook all of our mussels and stuff, and we would serve them all out of the bar. Actual
Wow.
bar. It was like a food well and then a drink
Wow.
And do you have to keep it all iced down?
well. We had a
Were you
huge oyster
were you
pit.
outside?
No, we were inside. We had an outside patio like on the lake,
Okay.
Uh-huh.
but the bar was actually inside. But we had a huge like oyster bin, and we kept all the oysters in there, and we would basically shuck to order. And then what was really nice about that bar is it was like an oval bar, but in the middle, it had an ice machine that fell from the ceiling.
Oh,
So the bar constantly had fresh pebble
That's
ice falling. So you never had to go
rad.
get more ice.
Yeah.
It literally
Love
was making it your own ice because we were using the pebble ice so fast.
Sure.
And we just used it in all of our cocktails too.
yeah, that's the worst to go like have to stop and go get ice. You're like,
stop
fuck.
what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
what am
always
I-
when you have 97 things to do.
Yeah.
Literally. And then you don't have a bar back. Did you guys have bar backs there?
No.
We did not.
Yeah.
Well, we had Jose.
Yes.
Jose was our.
We had a Jose.
That was my first bartending job, and he like did our floors and stuff and swept. And I got in the worst habit of I would pop bottles off, corks out. I just chucked them on the floor because Jose was back there every 5 minutes sweeping. And so when I first started bartending at PF Chang's, I was just chucking everything on the floor, and I'm like, well, shit, I'm the one who has to clean this up.
Yeah.
This sucks. So I had to break that habit. That was a bad habit.
That is a
Got
bad
it.
habit.
Got into
We
it.
You got a little spoiled.
Yeah.
You got a little spoiled.
Yeah, I was like, this is awesome. And then I had to start cleaning my own mess. That wasn't that much fun.
When did I was gonna say, when did you get to PF Chang's? Like, how many jobs did you go through to get to PF Chang's?
Then my next job, I got fired from the boathouse for insubordination. We're all
Ah.
surprised about that.
Surprise.
But
Daily
my GM
insubordination?
assaulted me. She threw a glass rack at me,
Jesus.
and
Oh, yeah.
I lost it. So she fired me.
I mean,
for
I would have lost it
insubordination.
too.
And then I like went to PF Chang's begging for a job, and they offered me the only job they had was a busser, and I was like, I'll take it because
Yeah.
I need a job. So I started at PF Chang's as a busser.
Let's talk
Here
about.
in Nashville,
No, in Chattanooga.
in chat. So
In
then you
Chattanooga.
transferred up.
Yep, and I worked my way up to a bartender there. That was probably hands down the best, well-run restaurant I've ever worked in.
The
In chat?
Chattanooga.
The PF Chang's in
Wow.
Chattanooga.
That's Frank's store.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had an awesome GM, an awesome chef. Like they didn't run like the restaurant ran itself. They wouldn't have even had to been there. Like everyone was
Oh,
trained.
yeah, that's super
Everyone knew
nice.
their job. But
Well,
then,
when you have good leaders,
Yeah.
we know
Mhm.
that when you have good leaders, the rest of the restaurant
Yeah.
kind of follows
and
too.
they were very respectful of the team, and they knew how to
Yeah.
address each individual as a different person. Like
Oh yeah.
What's that like? Gosh.
they were great. But now they're both in. Jared's now the like regional market chef of the company and all
Oh,
this.
PF Chang's is like.
Oh, yeah.
It's
gone
taken a
way,
nosedive.
way
They've sold
downhill.
a couple times, and it's just gotten worse and worse
Yep,
and
the
worse.
brand just keeps getting lowered.
But I
with
transferred to
quality.
Nashville as a bartender and
Mm-hmm.
then worked my way up to management and then decided that was shitty. So I stepped back down. And
Yeah.
then,
So I mean, I think I've told you guys, but like it's kind of crazy. Daly and I worked in the same area. She was working as a manager, and I was just a server. But we would meet up at the same bar sometimes.
knew all the same people.
And knew all the same people. And I was like,
Huh.
wait, you know this person? You're like, how do
Mhm.
you know this person? And then
Yeah.
we go back and forth, and we finally figured out like we would sit at the bar like close to each other. Obviously, we never talked to each other.
Sure.
But it's like now it makes sense why you look so
Because
familiar.
he had already known Deontay.
Yeah.
And I was who hired Deontay.
And I was like, how do you know
That's
that
wild.
person? He was
Yeah.
like, well, they worked for me. And I was like, wait, what? And then through figuring it out, it's just like crazy
Mhm.
that you meet these people, but then you don't know these people until like years later.
Yeah.
Nashville service industry can sometimes be super small and like in the sense of networking, because even in the year and a half, like I wouldn't have the job that I have now
Mhm.
if it weren't for Scott,
Right.
because we work together at the barbecue restaurant.
Well, that's the
together.
reason I work now is because John Kerr was the chef there, but he was also the chef at PF Chang's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so wild because
that
through
makes sense.
that networking stuff like really helps.
But you also bond when you hate,
Oh,
The same people.
100%.
and
Yeah.
we hate the same person at the one she manages in Cool Springs. So I was like, I hate the same person. I was like, oh, it's not that I hate him. I just don't like to talk to him because he doesn't like stop talking to you.
He's a talker,
And that's just what he does.
not a good listener in any stretch. of the imagination.
So you bartended at the places in Indy. Where'd you go from there?
So when I left Indianapolis, that was my first. I worked for that's where I was at Pablo's and the Uno's, and my first Chili's I worked at was there. And then when I left there, I actually did transfer within Chili's to a store outside Chicago.
Okay.
And then right around the time I started working there, they actually, a similar situation. They brought me on just as a server. And right as that happened, they had one of their full-time bartenders got promoted to a manager. One of them got fired and one of them moved to another store. So all of a sudden there was this big gaping hole of no bartenders in this store.
Oh, yeah.
And myself and another server, I had a little experience. He did not. We kind of stepped up, and then it kind of just became twice in my life that I've just kind of gotten sucked into it, working in a restaurant for, over 5 years. And, neither one was a great experience at the end, but thankfully, you meet a lot of great people along the way. Like as much as, Daly and I like to shit on our old job, and we do.
We sure do.
She's my very best friend, and I wouldn't have her without that job. So
exactly,
it's worth it in the long run for the people.
And it was a
along
terrible
the way.
job, but it was a fun time.
It was a good time for a minute, but it was up till COVID, and I think that's when it really turned on
But
us.
we used to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so like right at COVID, I'd moved back to Tennessee, and I was like, I know something's going down. I just don't understand what's going down at this point. But I was like, I need a job like yesterday. So I just called a manager that I used to work for, and I was like, hey man, like I know you work at this barbecue joint. I need a job. I've worked at like 4 different barbecue joints at this point. He's like, dude, just come fill paperwork out. I won't even like interview you. He's like, just start working.
That's awesome.
So I worked like the first week, and
it was just carry out orders, right?
it was, well, no, it wasn't even,
They hadn't shut you guys
they
down
hadn't
yet.
shut us down yet
Okay.
at this point. So we're like, I'm learning, and the GM's like, oh man, you learned everything in like 2 days. I'm just going to put you on, like, you don't need to train anymore. You're good. I was like, dude, I've been doing this. Like, it's not
you work
hard.
at one barbecue place.
You work at them all. You know the difference. And like the computer is the hardest part, but it was easy.
Yeah.
It was square.
It was square, so it was super easy.
It was super easy. So I went in the office one day. I was like, I guess I'm done with training. They're like, yeah, we'll call you to set up a schedule. And then COVID hit. And I was like, fuck, what do I do? And then at the point of that, I was like, I had already quit Oregon, so I couldn't pull unemployment from Oregon. And I had left Tennessee for too long to pull unemployment. So I'm literally like surviving on like air.
Wow.
I'm like, I don't know how my bills are going to be paid. That
Did y'all not run takeout?
So that's what happened. This manager called me and he's like, hey man, I really need your help. We're going to do like an old like carry out order, but tent side, like outside.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I came back for that, and the restaurant was completely closed. And so we just ran all the food out to the takeout, and it was great.
Yeah.
And then we kept doing that, but then we started opening up slowly and slowly, and letting more people in. And one of my favorite stories, when we got to the point of like letting people back in, we started getting real busy. But all these people were under the impression that like you could still take to-go drinks, like to-go liquor out the door. And it's like, no, you can't do that. So this guy's like comes in shooting the shit with his buddy, and he like points at me. And he's like, hey man, give me a Woodford on the rocks to go. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And he's like, what do you mean you're not doing that? And then he's like, I was like, the state of Tennessee, we're not doing that anymore.
Right.
He was like, so you're telling me the owner is specifically pointing out the owner's name told you not to do it? And I was like, no, the state of Tennessee told me not to do it. The owner has no control over what the state of Tennessee tells me to do. So he was just being an asshole. He's like, you know what? Just give me a Budweiser, whatever. Tell me when my food's ready. And like walked away from the bar. And I was like, hey dude, food's ready. Like not loud, but like not to where he couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
And so his food sat out there for 45 minutes. And then I get a phone call like an hour and a half later. And he's like, this guy's like bitching about his ribs. And I'm like, oh, I know who this is. And I didn't say, you remember me, but I told my manager exactly what happened, word for word.
Sure.
So my manager gets on the phone, and this guy's like, well, I'm going to tell the owner this. I'm going to tell the owner, like, this owner and I are best friends, blah, blah, blah. And then the GM was like, you know what? Just come back in. I'll get you new ribs. He's like, you know what? Just don't even worry about it. I'm going to call the owner. He's like, okay, then call the owner.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do?
So many people threw his name around just thinking.
Well,
Like-
and like they act like we don't know like we know the owner too.
Yeah.
Especially
Well, and
if
like
it's
We
a
work
local-
here.
Right. Well, I mean, the owner of that chain is very much like he doesn't want to know your name if he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
He tries to present himself as somebody who is very like
Yeah.
I work, you know, this is well, it's
very.
not even that. It's just like I came from nothing, but like he didn't know my name until he had to deal with me. Like when I was just a normal, regular employee, he never came into our location. He didn't learn my name until I became a catering manager.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had to learn my name
Yeah.
because we interacted more often.
Yeah. And then once after we started getting busier, she came, what was it? In
August of 2020, I left New York and decided to move to Nashville, which was
And so at this point,
wild.
This place is wild because like you got managers drinking off the tap. You got like employees just giving free drinks out. I'm talking like McAllen, 12 years, just giving free drinks.
Wow.
Not even caring about liquor costs. And it got to the point where like they were like starting to care about liquor costs because
They started getting, and they got, because then of course, that's when the owner actually starts paying attention is they
when he's losing money.
Yeah. Well, he saw that, I mean, we were going through bottles of tequila like it was water, you know?
I mean, doing like, oh, we're not, okay, we're still pouring. Okay, we're done.
And so when I got hired, I was originally, I mean, when you get hired on by this company, when you get trained on pretty much everything. So you get trained as a food runner, you get trained as a front cashier, you get trained on to-goes, trained on phones, like all this stuff, because we have different stations. You know, you had the front cash that took all of the orders when people came in. You had food runners that ran all the food, obviously, and cleaned tables because, you know, it's a sit down and leave your stuff. And then, you know,
yeah, they gave you your number and they put it down.
Like Panera or McAllister's or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had a to-go window where people came and either placed to-go orders or picked up their to-go orders. Then you had the bar. And then on the other side, on busy Friday, Saturday nights, you had someone just answering the phone and taking to-go orders.
Yeah.
And you like the manager,
And you're trained on every single one.
and the man, if he put you in that spot, you stayed in that spot.
You
Otherwise,
don't move from that telephone.
if you move from that telephone, you better tell somebody to like, hey, watch my station, because like that manager will come out and yell. Like one
Yeah,
time,
that's not at all my experience. It was you do this station and 17 others, but also you have to.
Right.
That's your
Well,
jam.
but on weeknights, if there wasn't somebody at that station, either
Yeah.
the bartender or the to-go person was that person.
yeah, they had to
Yeah.
like flip flop and
Mhm.
And I had gotten to the point where I was working every station.
yeah.
Not very rarely was I a food runner, but I had gotten to the point where I worked front cash because of my wonderful personality and people being able to hear me through my mask and the
Mhm.
plexiglass that was still up, you know, all that good
Yeah.
stuff. Because we worked with a lot of high school kids and like young college kids. So they don't, unfortunately,
Project
they don't,
your voice.
they don't know how to project. They don't know how to speak up. They mumble,
Yeah.
you know.
Because they do everything on their phone. They don't have to talk.
Exactly. And so I had gotten to the point where because of my personality, I was doing a lot of things that other people weren't doing that had been there longer than me. So I did not have a lot of friends when I first started working there.
Yeah, mainly I hated her the most.
Because,
How
well,
it goes.
I mean,
I was like, you're doing too much. You need to stop.
Well,
Take a chill pill.
I was in a brand new city. I had no friends. I mean, I knew 2 people when I moved here, and I mean, they didn't work with me. You know, I had just gotten this job because it was the first restaurant that I walked into when I moved there. Literally, the day I moved into my apartment in Nashville, I had lunch there with my family, and I was like, "Oh, this is 5 minutes from my place, and it seems pretty chill."
It's an easy job for the amount of money that we would make.
Easy.
But these high schooler kids were making like the same amount of money, and it's like, dude, this is ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
these high school kids are like coming in with like all kinds of fancy shit, and we're like, we can barely pay our rent.
Right, because they didn't have real bills.
They didn't have rent, yeah.
Yeah. But I think I was working there for 2 months when I started doing catering. And about that time was when our catering manager at the time got in trouble.
Oh, you guys want to hear this? This is the best. This is the best one. So she got in trouble and she got suspended. And then they let her like take deliveries and deliveries only.
Yeah.
Then she got mad because she had taken a delivery the year prior and to the same person and they tipped less. So what does this bitch do? She calls that customer, is like,
Jesus
why did you
Christ.
tip less?
Yeah.
And they had to fire her. And then she kind of took over.
Wow.
And
everything.
Because COVID happened, ma'am. People
Yeah.
are broke.
So the GM had come up to me and was like, "Hey, like, we're in a spot. I know you've only been doing caterings for like a month, but because at that point I'd really only been doing them for like a month and a half.
Sure.
And it was like right before Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving for this company is like fucking insane.
Absolutely berserk.
Absolutely bonkers. We do, on top of everything in the store, we do at least 200 Thanksgiving meals. At
Wow.
least, if not more. I think the second year that we did it, we had over 400 over the span of like 2 or 3
I mean,
days.
we
Weird
did
that
like
people eat
97,000.
barbecue for Thanksgiving.
Well, we do full turkey.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then they
yeah.
did the
We
whole
We do
entire-
a full Thanksgiving
I was about
like
to say that's not
meal.
so bad.
Bird.
yeah.
I mean, these
You do
meals are
hams
like,
too,
you're
right?
spending hundreds of
Yeah,
dollars.
and hams.
Yeah.
Yeah, hams for what? Oh yeah, no, you had a choice of ham or turkey.
Yeah.
And you could do half a turkey or half a ham or both. Like we had people that would spend
Thousands.
thousands of dollars
I mean, we made
for us to make their dinner.
We made $97,000 in one day.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much of that is profit by any means, but for a small time restaurant that's not fine dining, that's a lot of money and a lot of like time and food and effort to put into this situation.
Yeah. So my GM had been like, hey, like, and I was very like timid to take the job because I was like, I've only worked here for 4 months and like there are people that have been working here for like 2 years. So it kind of like became a behind the back sneaky type of thing because I was like, well, I don't want to take it because I think this person should have it. And my GM was like, well, they don't want it. I said, well, if she doesn't want the position, then I'll take it. But like, I think she should have it. So I think you need to offer her the job. And if she doesn't want it.
Well, and like that girl had been talking to everybody except for her and be like, I want this job. I want this job. And then she gets offered the job and she doesn't take the job. It's like, what are you doing? So
then I didn't have to take the job, but I chose to take the job because I was like, well, you know, like I really enjoy catering. I think I'm really good at it. And I'm really good at the organizational part and, you know, connecting with the contacts of the venues and stuff. And just being able, because I had to do a lot of that when I was working for the theater in New York. Like I was a company manager. I had to set up all these things and I got really good at it. And so I was like, well, this is a fun way, you know, for me to A, get out of the store and B, like make a little bit more money because I was making a good chunk of change. Because not only was I making tips, but I was also making like $15 an hour or $12 an hour. So like I was making a good chunk of money because I was working over 40 hours a week. But at that point in time, everybody started like turning on me because they thought I took this job away from this girl that had been there for over 2 years. And from there, it just went downhill. Yeah, like over the next year, like it would get really, really good. And then we had this one girl that we worked with that just loved drama and loved making things up and loved creating a toxic environment.
Dude, I've never understood that mindset, why people get so pissed about someone getting a job because you don't deserve, like no one deserves the job more. If it wasn't offered to you, there's a reason.
Yeah.
No one else should have to say no to a position because like that has nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, and I mean, I definitely understand, but again, it's very much like we worked with high schoolers, we worked with young college students, and, you know, we worked with people that like, unfortunately, that was the life that they only knew.
Yeah.
Is that restaurant. They'd been working there for so long and like they'd never left Nashville. Like they, you know, not that there's anything wrong with staying in Nashville or, you know, being from here or whatever, but like, I mean, I've been working in the restaurant industry since like 2012 and it was 2020. And I had a lot of New York experience from like working in restaurants and then also being a company manager for a theater company. Like I had the experience to be able to do this. And I also am ridiculously a go-getter and like always want to do 110% at my job.
Not me.
And so I got to the point where I was like, I had told my GM at one point, I was like, they are fighting me tooth and nail on everything that I'm asking them to do. And if they're not going to get behind me, take me off this job. I don't want it.
Yeah.
Transfer me to a different store. I don't care.
Sure.
Put me somewhere else because I don't want to go out representing this company, representing this store and
sabotage.
Because that's what they were doing. It had gotten to the point. I mean, he knows because he was a part of it at one point.
He was.
Because at one point in time, like my first catering that I had to do as the catering lead, everybody made my life a living hell.
At one point, I could see the frustration and I kind of felt bad. And this is at the point where I started kind of like, I like her more than I hated her. But I was like, you know what? Then everybody liked me more than her. So I would kind of like organize, be like, hey, dude, just do this. Just do it. Just do it. And she'd be like, thank you for doing that. And then it got to the point where like she'd tell me what to do. And I'd be like, look, guys, just do it.
He became kind of like my liaison because they
everybody
listened
liked
to him.
me more. Because
I feel like no one really liked me so much, but they did stuff that I asked because they knew I was going to erupt.
Mm-hmm.
And it had gotten to that point where I was like, because there was one point I did erupt. It was. Do you remember?
That
I
kid.
was backing in.
Oh,
So we carried a smoker.
yeah.
We carried a smoker
This
on a
is when-
trailer.
This is when our relationship really like I was like, all right,
We carried a smoker on a trailer when we did whole hog events. And I was trying to back this trailer up into a parking spot. And I had the windows down so that I think you and one other person was helping me guide the trailer into where it was supposed to be. And then all of a sudden, all of the employees that I was with were all surrounding me and telling me 5 different things. Turn the wheel this way. No, turn the wheel this way. No, just back up straight.
I need
No.
one person talking. One
So
person.
everybody was talking to me at one point. So I lost my shit. I fucking ripped that thing into park and I said, if you think you can fucking do it. And I fucking went inside. I was like, I'm fucking done.
well, because I was like, you sure you can back that trailer up? She's like, yeah, turn left to go right. And I was like, I mean, yeah, but it's a little bit more different.
And I really do believe I could have done it
Absolutely.
if I had people
helping.
helping me.
Yeah.
But everybody was trying to sabotage me in that moment because I also had a lot of guys that I worked with that were very much misogynist and thought, well, that girl can't back a trailer into a parking spot.
Yeah.
Like,
And
bitch,
it's like-
I've been backing up horse trailers my whole life. Fuck yourself.
Literally. But it was just one of those things where it was like, I drove a fucking transit van and a box truck for a living. Like when I was touring with theaters, like you have no idea what I've driven or what I haven't driven or what I've been able to handle. So it was definitely one of those moments where in that moment right there, when I lost it, everybody was like, oh,
Because she was like, Marcus, you just fucking do it. And I was like, okay.
okay.
And I whipped it, and everyone's like, dude, you did that so smooth. And I was like, I mean, I've backed a couple trailers up in my lifetime. Like, and then she was so mad. And I was like, look, it's fine. I was like, the trailer's backed up. I was like, let's just get back to the store. You can go home. Like, this all erupted over nothing,
Right.
really.
Yeah, over people being fucking respectful.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
disrespectful. And it's just like,
That shit
But-
will send me over the fucking edge.
yeah. Because I mean, you were a catering manager.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get it. Like you have people that are under you. And like, yes, like when you're in the store, because that was the other issue. When you're in the store and you're just working regularly, like when you're a bartender, when you're, in the restaurant itself and you're not on a catering, you are just like comrades. You're just coworkers. But when you're on that job site, I am your boss. And like, that was one of the things that like, I didn't want to say because I didn't want to come across as like power hungry. But at one
Right.
point I did look at somebody and I was like, if you don't fucking listen to what I have to say, I will make sure you are never on a catering.
Like if
ever
I have
again.
to pull the boss card, I will. Like, don't
Yeah.
make me do that.
Don't make
Don't
me.
make me do that, but I will do that.
Because I am one of those people where I do want people to like me. I am a people pleaser. I'm an empath. Like I want
I am not.
everybody to be friends. Like, and I want everybody to have a good time. I want everybody to have a good experience. But like, if you disrespect me for no reason
Mhm.
other than you just want to be a dick, like,
Right.
Yeah, we had this kid, and he thought he'd been there since he was like 16. He was like 18. He's about to go to college, and so he thought he knew more than her. And we're like slopping food onto these plates, and she was like, telling this person, I need more, whatever it was, pork or whatever. And he's not doing it fast enough because there's 2 different lines, and he was the only runner. And he got an attitude with her, and she was like, and the people are standing in front of us. And I looked at her, I was like, you better say something. 'Cause,
Yeah, you can't let him talk to you like that.
He's an 18-year-old kid. Don't let him
Right.
talk to you like that. So she was like, I'm going to discuss it afterwards, and like pulled him aside and like ripped his ass. And he was like, I'm so sorry. And then the whole night he was like, can I do anything for you? Can I
Yeah,
do
get out
this?"
of my way because some of us
Literally.
have to work around here.
yeah. Because I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about your experience with caterings. Cause like when we would go on caterings, there were some times where we would show up, immediately set up and immediately start serving. But there were also times where we would show up, start setting up, and then we would just stand around for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that was the worst because then people start to lose it. Like
Mhm.
you get them
Like,
there and you get them to start working, you get them hyped up. And then when you have that lull,
Nothing to do. Yeah.
everybody just like, people would go out back and smoke. Like people would go out back and like get high. Like,
Well, that's like when you're slow at the restaurant when you don't need tables or you only have one table, you mess up because you're
Yeah.
not in the mindset to
Literally.
like be working.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd rather be
I'd rather be
absolutely
busy as
slammed.
hell.
Yeah.
Because I'm staying on track. I'm staying on
Mhm.
task.
Or
better.
going from like super slow to like really, really busy. I hate that because then you're like,
This guy loves it.
Oh my gosh, that happened so bad the other night.
I'm like,
Oh my
He's
goodness.
just like, I'm like, what do you need? He's like, I don't know.
oh, was that the night when I was hosting? Thursday?
Thursday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or
It was
Tuesday night?
Tuesday.
Tuesday night was
I
horrible
had
too.
nothing going
anybody-
on for 2 hours, and then it kind of got a little sketchy with like things kept dropping out of the queue, but then we had things that were just people were walking in. So this one played beautiful mind with it all and somehow made it work. She said,
Oh
"I'm
my
going to buy a
gosh.
lotto ticket after work because somehow it all popped off correctly."
CP and I were like,
But I did. I had 2 covers to start, and then at 8:30, I think I was running 16 covers, and I was
all
like,
your entire
all
section
at once. And they were all very nice and sweet, and most of them, for the most, well, we won't get into it.
Right.
But most of the people were cool
There's always
about
that
it.
one. That's
But yeah,
really-
it was all at once.
You could
And that
see
was-
the panic set
I
in your
do.
face, and you're
Well,
like,
both of you have essayed with me as well.
Right.
So Marcus knows that look of fear in my eyes,
I'm like,
especially.
what do you
He goes,
need?
"What do you need?" So does she.
Well, and it's so funny
Yeah, I
because
was like, Brenton, what do you need? And he was just like, I don't know. Just everything happened at once.
well, it's because now that we've worked together, I mean, you guys obviously like have worked together for what, almost
Long time.
8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. We both moved to Nashville the same year and both
Yeah.
started bartending at Chang's within
And
6 months of
so,
each other.
like you guys, if there's something about working together that long that you kind of learn.
There's a nonverbal communication.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, and it was never as easy when we went forward because at a certain point, she left and went and managed the other store for a while. And then she, went and did her vet tech thing for a while and then came back part-time, because she missed Chang's. I think she missed me.
Pretty much.
And honestly, I was running a team at that point that was a little hit and miss. I had Tim and little Jess who were great, but it was a little shaky with the rest,
Mhm.
so I needed another heavy hitter. So when she was coming back, this is always a fun story. We had a general manager at the time who, when she came to come back part-time, this manager tried to tell her that she was going to have to come back and start over as an SA, basically, as a
Absolutely.
brand
I was
new
stepping
hire.
down from management.
And she was coming
Oh
in as a
my.
manager leaving from another store who had bartended full-time with me, not 18 months prior to that. And so she was talking about the Chattanooga store being one of the best run. And at that point, that manager was both managing the Chattanooga store and also running our region. So she immediately reaches out to, her old boss who we love, Frank, and says, "Hey, this lady's trying to tell me I have to start over as an SA. I'm just trying to come back part-time, to make a little money behind the
We're
bar."
at the table together, me and this manager.
And
You're on the phone with
Mhm.
When-
She had
Frank
stepped,
in
she
front
had
of her?
stepped away to do something,
Yeah.
and I
And
called
This is
she
why
Frank.
was-
I love you so much.
and when I
That's
tell you,
savage.
I have never seen a manager pull a 180 so fast to kiss someone's ass. Because all of a sudden her boss is basically calling her like, you let her come back to whatever position she wants for as many or as few hours as she wants.
Mhm.
This is ridiculous.
He was like, she's stepping down from being the
You know.
bar manager at the same restaurant. Like it's a different location. but
Right.
You're managing the bar, and you're telling her she can't bartend.
I mean, she's
that's
trying to give
crazy.
away
The
our
solution-
espresso machine to daily.
She did.
She's
I got it still to this day.
I've never seen somebody pull a 180
That
so
is
fast. And it was-
hilarious.
ultimately, this manager ended up kind of ousting herself with some really weird shit that she got caught doing things with people. But
Well, that's why
There's
anyways,
video proof of it.
yes,
Oh,
that's.
Because there's got to be video proof
but
There does, or it didn't happen.
or it didn't happen.
But yeah, to your point
Bullshit.
though, Daly and I had a lot of good years bartending together, and we talk about it all the time. Like we both have a good job working together now, but we miss it. And there's a lot of good memories. And there was only once or twice we got upset with each other, and it was usually over something stupid about
Like a bus
oh,
tub.
who's going to change the bus tub. Yeah,
Dude, we got into it about this. And Sydney and Matt were at the
they
at the
were.
bar that
That's
day.
true.
And they're like, Mom and Dad quit fighting.
we never got into it.
It was
Matt
like a
says
solid,
that all the time.
it was like a solid 10-minute. We were at each other's throat, and then it was just over and
Yeah.
done. It was fine.
We closed out the last check, and we're like, "I'm sorry,
That was,
I love you."
but it was
I love
a
you too.
really intense. There was so much stuff happening, and I'm sure we were running hour and a half checks because we
Right.
did every single night.
Yeah.
All the guests were probably upset with us.
Yeah, those were during the rough kitchen days.
Yeah,
right when
it
that
was a
happened.
trip.
It's-
Well, because there's something about, because bartenders, and I know we kind of dealt with this a little, but not as much, because anybody who sat at the bar top where we worked, or that first table right off the bar, normally they all came to the bar instead of going to the front where they were supposed to go. They would always just come out to the
yeah,
bar.
they go to the bar, be like, "Can I get food?" I'm like, "No, you got to go all the way back over there. I got to stand all in that line." I'm like, "Yes, you skip the
Unless-
entire line
Unless it was a regular.
if it was a regular."
If it was
obviously,
a
I'm like, what do you
regular, we
want?
were like, just, because we knew their name. So we could just type their name into the tablet. And then everybody would know, oh, that's JR's food. And so then they would like take it to JR. Like that was just, that is one thing that I do miss about working where we were working at is we had so many people that we saw every day or every other day. Or
Yeah, we had a lot of regulars.
so many regulars. That is something I definitely miss is because I mean, there's JR, like we talk to him.
Yeah, I still text him sometimes.
We still text him and he has a regular that texts him all the time from freaking Barbados or something like that. Just like, hey, we ate at a place called Marcus or something like that. And just like, shooting the shit. But that is like, there's something about being a bartender and having regulars that like they come in not only because they love where you're at, but they like you. They like hanging out with you. Absolutely. They like talking to you and knowing their names. And, I don't know. I definitely miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of video and photography work by doing that.
Yeah.
This one lady came in and she'd been coming in for a while and I got to know like her drink. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's this lady. And so one night I'm grabbing, she wants a Pritchard's and Diet Coke. So I grab the Old Forester because the Pritchard's bottle looks like an Old Forester bottle and they're right next to each other on the well. And I pour it and she's like, that's bourbon. I was like, no, that's rum. And like, I'm almost to the point of almost arguing with her. And then she's like, looks at me. She's like, no, that's bourbon. I look down. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I grabbed the Old Forester bottle and I fixed the drink for her. The next week she came in. I was like, I promise. And it became a running joke that like I did her drink wrong.
Sure. And
she knew that I had done our drink wrong. And we just built a whole relationship over that. And then she was like, meet my daughter, meet her husband, meet this person. And she's put me in a lot of great positions to like meet people and do some cool things. And I still text her. We had a lot of cool
regulars at ours. We had this one guy. We just called him Martini Guy.
Martini Guy. I love it.
He used to come in and he loved me. And he would just be like, Daly has to be here to make my martini. I didn't do anything to his martini.
Right.
I chilled the vodka and put it in a cup. Like,
did you do any vermouth?
No, he didn't like the vermouth. He literally got a straight up vodka martini. And if anyone else made it,
it was wrong.
It was wrong. And I'm like, it's just cold vodka. There's nothing you can do to mess that up. But Brendan's like, I hate this man. You pissed me off so bad.
This guy would catch me on the wrong day when I was so busy. Be like, is Daly back there? And no,
it's
she's
just
not.
me.
But I can chill vodka.
I will make you a martini. That is when Daly makes it.
Man,
you probably are just staring at her ass. And I mean, that's whatever. That's you do you,
right.
sir.
Literally.
But
he was
while she's making it, you're enjoying your view. It's fine. But like,
we had some good regulars. We had some terrible regulars.
We did.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like anywhere
we had good ones
go.
that turned into terrible ones, like Isaac.
Yes, we did. We had to have him banned from the restaurant. One of our regulars
used to come in every day.
Well, they also came in Christmas Eve and stiffed us.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Oh, yeah, you're out. No.
As soon as a regular stiffs you, you're like,
on Christmas Eve.
Well,
you're done.
And I mean,
and we're busy as hell on Christmas Eve.
And for what it's worth,
because you're one of the only places open.
Us $50 every time he sat down for a year.
But I think kind of like alcoholism kind of started getting him a little bit more, and then he turned into kind of like a dick.
We had a regular like that too. She and
I got into a verbal argument because like we were helping this guy out so much because he was broke, but he would tip us. He tipped us like $5 There was not like
he was tipping us. We would charge him for one. When he had like 3.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he would only tip us 20% on one, which was like $3.
This guy was like, he was a regular. He'd been there for like years. And we got to the point of texting and stuff. And I don't talk to him that much, but it got to a point where he couldn't even pay for his bills. So he started like pawning people's stuff off for them.
He'd be like,
not giving them money. So I caught wind of it. And I was like, hey man, you gonna be able to pay for your tab? And he's like, excuse me? I was like, I'm making a joke out of it. I was like, I mean, your card didn't go through last time. I'm just asking if you're going to be able to pay for your meal. He was like, I don't think you should be asking that question. I was like, I have the right to ask you that question.
Yeah, last time you didn't pay.
Because last time you didn't pay. Your card declines every single time. Half the time I have to add your check to somebody else's check because they're going to pick up your tab because you know them. It's like, dude, stop coming in here. And he was so pissed that he didn't come in there for 2 weeks. I was like, okay, bye. I was like, if you're going to get drunk, just like go drink in your car or something and go sit in here.
And
Right.
it got to the point.
And you don't have to go to a restaurant and get a $6 Bud Light when you can go buy a whole pack at the store for $6.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
100%.
you can go home.
He definitely was one of those that like he came in because he was lonely and he lived by himself and he just had his dog and like, but he had gotten to the point where he burned so many bridges
So many.
because one of our other regulars, this man's an alcoholic, but I love him so much because he's just the sweetest guy and has such a sweet heart. But he had done so much for our regular that couldn't pay his tab.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He had done so much for him because they went way back and they'd known each other for a million years, because they were both in the music industry. So obviously like the music industry in Nashville, especially back then, way back when, everybody was so tight knit.
Sure.
And especially because our one regular was the grandson of a very famous guitarist and the other guy who couldn't pay his tab, he fixed guitars and he fixed amps. So like they knew each other because of that. Like they had very close, but it had gotten to the point where like the guitar fixing guy really screwed over our other regular when it came to like some guitars that belonged to his grandfather. And like, it got really, really
Yeah,
bad.
it got really bad. So then I would just start popping off at the mouth and be like, are you going to be able to pay for your tab? Or are you going to do this? Or I don't
Dude,
think
we
you
had a
should.
similar regular. He was a handful. Brent will know exactly who I'm talking about. He used to come in. He was a single guy. He used to be like in his heyday, like a huge like videographer and knew all these really famous people, was really good friends with a famous actress and was her roommate. And he had stories, awesome life stories.
Yeah.
I mean, for days.
Yeah.
But he was an alcoholic. He was lonely. And he
Yep.
would come in and he would drink gin on the
Oh,
rocks
God.
Yep.
and a whole shit ton of it.
I
Yeah.
love it.
And he would just sit there and he loved me and he loved Karen. And he liked Brent okay, but sometimes Brent would have to like intervene in like situations where he was like getting out of hand.
Right.
Because he would get a little crazy, get a little
Yeah.
wild once he started getting drunk. But I mean, we always put up with him. He always tipped and he always paid
Yeah.
his tab.
Exactly.
But he would get
That's
out
all
of
we want
hand
as bartenders,
sometimes.
Yeah.
right?
But like when we first kind of like took over the bar, he was really out of hand because he had been allowed to like say and do whatever he wanted.
Oh, yeah.
And so we put a stop to that quickly. And we were like, you can be here, you can act a little rowdy, but you can't be like derogatory and
Yeah.
disrespectful.
Yeah.
Well,
That's where we're
Lennon-
drawing the line.
Yeah, Lynn and Haven just let him run wild.
Oh, they
before
let
you
him
know
run
back
wild.
there.
And so he got to where he like behaved himself for the most part. And he was a consistent regular. He came in and stuff. And we all as a collective group like felt really bad for him
Right.
because we knew he was
He's
just
a
there
nice
to
guy.
talk to somebody.
Because
Yeah.
he needed
He just wanted some
socialization.
company.
Yeah.
And there were some nights like where we couldn't give him all of our attention, or like
Yeah.
Karen couldn't come talk to him, or I couldn't come talk to him because we were getting slammed on takeout. And he would like take that shit so personal. And I'm like, we're at the end of the day, we're working. Like we can't spend 20 minutes up here
Right.
talking to you.
If you were my only customer in here, I would be more than happy to stand here and shoot the shit
Yeah,
with
but
you.
sometimes like we're slammed. And I
Right.
just-
But if there's like 50 other people at the bar, obviously I
Yeah.
can't stand
Yeah,
here and have
absolutely.
a 30-minute conversation with you.
And we had these two ladies that we love. They've actually come into the Palm a couple times. They
Yeah.
were awesome. And they used to come in all the time and see it. Monday nights were like mine and Brent's night that we always worked together.
Yeah.
So we would have
Mhm.
all these regulars come in, these brothers that used to come in. They were awesome. We had
Yeah.
a lot of good regulars, but then we had some terrible ones.
Right.
Did you guys ever have a regular fall asleep on the bar?
Couple of times. We had, that older lady who used to come in. That was kind of a sad story too. I think it was
Yeah.
kind of like a mixing medications with,
Yep.
but we had like her grandson, I think her granddaughter
Grandson, yeah.
had come in, and after this happened a couple of times, because it would happen between our
They
bar
had to
and
come
then
pick her
the
up.
one at
Oh,
the
wow.
Marriott bar right across the parking lot. Yeah, people would
Like the cops would come and they would have to call her family.
Yeah, we called the
come get her.
non-emergency number one night because
Yeah,
she
so
was
it's like she's
passing out. Yeah,
and she wasn't like all there.
yeah.
Something
Yeah.
was like not triggering right.
We
or something.
so I'll go back to New York for my New York bartending / serving days. We had a regular I remember her so clearly. She was a journalist for like the New York Times,
Mhm.
like in her heyday.
Yeah.
She was like a well-known journalist. And she lived in the apartment skyrise catty corner from the bar that I worked at. And she would come over every day. We opened at 11 o'clock. She would come in about 11:30 and she would have vodka martinis. And after about 3, she would get because she was mixing medication. We didn't know this at the time. We finally
you've also been drinking martinis.
3 martinis is a lot too.
That's a lot.
Right.
Straight vodka.
I mean, she did sip them. So like, she sat there for about 2.5 hours and had like 2 or 3 martinis. But after her, like at the end of her second, like halfway through her third, she would get mean, like angry mean and start like cussing at us or like,
no, ma'am.
And it had gotten to the point though, where like, you know, I'm very much like, I'll talk to you like you're my grandma, like, especially when it's an older lady who obviously lives by herself. Again, just wants socialization.
I don't care who you are. You're not cussing at me.
Right.
Facts.
100%. And so it had gotten to the point where sometimes because in New York, unfortunately, a lot of bartenders won't cut people off. They just, because they want the money, they want, you know, whatever. They want the tips. But it got to the point where sometimes we would have to walk her across the street.
Yeah, it's wild.
Because the bartender, because I would tell new morning bartenders, I'd be like, hey, she can only have 2 and then she's cut off, because she would sometimes come back. She would forget she'd already been in that day, go home, sleep it off for a couple hours and come back about 4 o'clock.
That's crazy.
Like nothing had ever happened and it was her first time in that
Dude,
day.
we had to kick this one lady out. It was that regular. It used to come in at lunch and she would always get pissed off. She would always get either the street noodles or something like that. And she'd get pissed off if it wasn't at the freaking bar in like 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And she would lose her. And sometimes she'd sit in the dining room and do the same shit. And finally I was like, it's not fast food. Like, you're not getting your food in 5 minutes here, especially when we're busy. You can either take it or leave. And she never tipped $1.
Yeah.
And she would yell at me, where's my food? It's cooking. It'll be out as soon as it's ready.
Right.
And so finally I was just like, you don't need to sit up here anymore. So she started sitting in the dining room and causing a bunch of problems there. And I think we eventually had to tell her she can't come back because she would just like literally cause a scene over her food not appearing magically in front of her in 45 seconds.
Oh, God.
Like, what do you think this is? This isn't McDonald's.
Right,
man.
exactly.
Like the food has to cook. Like the place was a scratch kitchen. Like everything's made from scratch.
Yeah.
Give us a second.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, PF Chang's is
It's actually one of the more respectable things I can say about the company still. Like they've definitely lowered their portions and things like that, but they still do have a scratch kitchen.
Everything's from scratch.
Got all the meat and veg in house and
all the dim sums made in house.
I don't know. The last time I went there,
I
felt like I was eating pebbles out of a bowl.
They've definitely brought the quality down on what the quality of like meats and the portions they use.
I was telling her the other day because we were talking about restaurants that like should not even exist. But I was like, you know what? The first time I remember going to PF Chang's, it was fire.
Dude, it was like fine dining.
Yeah.
It was so nice. I went there on my 22nd birthday. I'll never forget, before I even thought about working there. And we had such a fun time. And we ended up, all the service staff who I ended up working with the next year all came out with us afterwards. And we all it was so fun. I used to love PF Chang's. It was my favorite place. And then I got a job there and I loved working there when I worked in Chattanooga. Once I moved to Nashville, they got bought out that year and it kind of just got lower and lower. Every time they've gotten bought out, it's gotten a little bit worse and worse, but
a little further away
from what it used to be.
Well,
but
unfortunately and I feel like that happens with pretty much any place that gets bought out or like sold or.
Well, and the management, in my opinion, also just had like zero respect for any of the staff. Like they didn't care about your time, your personal life. Like they literally just expected you to be there for free and be a slave to the place.
And they're master manipulators.
They are. And it's like ultimately they hold the deck because they schedule you to work or they don't. So it's like you almost have to say yes. And that's what I've always said is management will always remember every time you said no, but they will never remember the times you say yes. So it's like the one time you say no, you'll be penalized with that forever.
Oh, 100%.
Wise words.
Or if you constantly say yes and then all of a sudden you have to like take a couple days off. You have to
set a boundary.
Yeah.
So it's like at PF Chang's, I had set no boundaries. I was like their actual bitch. I did everything. I worked every day. I was working 80 hours a week. I was clocking out. Like it was crazy. I was literally living there. Miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable.
People like me are looking at her because we cared about her. We're like, maybe slow down a little. And,
Right.
It was crazy.
Daily being the, worker that she is, and her work ethic is unmatched. You two work with her. I mean, nobody puts in more effort to what she does in a restaurant than this girl.
She'll also be the first person to retire.
Absolutely, she will. Hands down.
I'm trying.
She watches her money much closer than the rest of
100%.
us.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I just watched her pile on because I mean, she towed the company line. Like if you'd asked her back then, or me, but honestly, I mean, I got to be the face and, shake the hands and kiss the babies. But, she was, the puppet master behind so many other things.
Right.
So many of our regulars, would, be so quick, or our coworkers even be quicker to talk to me sometimes. But
They would talk over me to talk to Brenton because they didn't want my answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they knew what your answer was going to be before you even said it.
Why are you asking the question? Right. Like you're asking a stupid question. And, I'm going to give you some smart ass answer. Brent's going to say it in a very nice, sweet way. He's a sweet, nice guy.
Right.
And I would just look at these people. Literally, they would speak. I would be closer to them in proximity. And they would speak over me to Brenton.
Hey, Brenton.
And I'm like, I'm standing here.
Right. I'm a bartender too.
But that bar, I tell you, it was ran right. It was clean. Side work got done. Everyone was doing their part.
Our bar was cleaner than the rest of the restaurant most of the time.
It was so clean. And we
It's
did.
not always so wild.
We dated everything. We threw things away when they expired. We cut our fruit fresh every
We
day.
got a better score than the kitchen for the health department usually.
Like that bar was ran. I ran that bar.
Yeah.
Like
Have you guys gone back in there after you guys obviously?
I've never been back in there. I went in there to get Brenton to leave.
And then I went in about 6 months after I was working to get Nicholas, and he came to work. And I also tried to get Lucas, but his podcast didn't come for another 9 months after that. But.
Yeah, I went in there and I took my checkout in there one night.
Yeah, that was.
And it was when I very first started serving.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and sat at the bar, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, I guess. And I was completely on my work. I took my checkout in there. I think that night I had made like $780 or something like that. And I just looked
Back
at
in the
Brenton and
good
I was
days.
like, why are you not working here? Like with me.
Right.
And
That was the day I decided,
he
right?
was just like,
Literally
okay.
right
He
then.
put his notice in the next day. He was like, I don't know. Like,
You're right.
and like we had such a that's the thing about me for sure. And I can think Brenton would probably agree. I have a blind loyalty to places for some
Yeah.
reason.
Same.
Like
Yeah.
I feel so guilty like leaving, especially when I feel like they won't run successfully without me. Like
Yeah.
I carry so much workload on my back.
I know what that's like.
And
Yeah.
like, but once I ultimately got fired for some bullshit,
What's that?
like I was just like, okay, I'm taking all my friends with me because that like
Yeah.
the place is crazy.
Yeah.
And so once I got fired, I went and recruited everybody that I cared about that I knew deserved a better life.
Yeah.
And
I know you guys know this, but for the sake of the podcast, when Daly left and came to the Palm, obviously Karen and then subsequently Tony and then myself came. But it also came
Wait,
with
Tony worked at
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, so
Changed?
did Austin, so did Taylor, so did Deontay, so did Dishwasher John.
Yeah,
Nick.
there's about a dozen people
yeah.
Nick.
overall. And if you include Nick too, and then Lucas ultimately, then
Yep.
after that, we had, and it all started with her and then our, old manager at the time who, he's a tool, but he's not the worst guy. I don't know. We won't get into it.
Not the worst, not the best.
He's, but he definitely said at some point when I talked to him after that all happened, he said, I've never seen that much fallout from one employee leaving a restaurant. And
I mean, you follow
it's-
great people. Like I've followed
well,
managers.
it spoke volumes of what she did there
Yeah.
and how, myself and especially me and Karen, like we weren't going to keep working there without her,
Well, my thing is I'm not the nicest person all the time, but I'm always there. I do my job. I help out, and I'm not going to let my team go under the bus.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm going to jump under it with you. So I feel like
100%.
people, even if you don't like me, when it comes to like my work, you respect me to a certain extent because if you're going down, I'm going to go with you. Like
Right.
Yeah.
we're all a group.
You're not going to stand on the edge and just like,
Yeah, I'm not like that.
No.
So like you might not like me, but we're gonna get through this. Like we're
Yeah.
gonna do this. And like that's the thing with Tony. Like me and her she had worked there previously and quit, and me and her never even spoke. She always wore these cat ears. She
the
was
cat ears.
so weird. She's so weird.
There's like a little
And-
headband that has little like diamond cat ears
She wore
on
them
the
every
top.
single day. She was so weird.
No shit.
Yes.
Tony?
Yes. And so she had quit, and then they hired her back, and then we end up me and her getting stuck on lunch shifts together. I would be bartending, she would be a server. We would have no takeout, no host, no expo, no anybody. Logan's in the kitchen as the only employee, and we would get rocked. And so me and her became like friends by like
Yeah.
we had to survive these
Yeah.
lunch
Yeah.
shifts
Yeah.
together, and we had to work as a unit, or else we were not going to survive it. And I remember one morning our regional manager, who was a female, came in her high heels, and we're going down in flames. And Tony has like 14 tables. I have a full bar. We have a full patio. There's a line out the door for takeout. And she just is like standing there. And I'm like, ma'am, if you don't get to work, like, and do something.
Yeah.
Like, you're sitting here critiquing
How can you
us,
watch that?
and we're going down in flames. Like, and she was just standing there. And I'm like, literally watching us burn to the ground.
Yeah.
And
She was awful.
they did the same thing to our kitchen. They would understaff. I swear Logan was the only person in the kitchen most of the time. Like, he would literally be bouncing from like 3 different stations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he'd
crazy.
come in at 7 a.m. to do all of the prep.
All the
and-
prep for the catering orders we would have
Yeah.
going out. And then I would do catering. I would leave, come back, do takeout,
Yeah.
and then close the bar that night.
Yeah. We
It was crazy.
we tried to go back in. I could, after she got fired from that place we worked at together, I had convinced her, because I wanted catfish tacos, to go back into this place. We go back in. All our friends are like, "Oh my god, hello, how are you doing?" Blah blah blah.
Well, to him.
To me, and not to her. And so we order the food. We sit at the bar. Our buddy is like talking to me, talking to her. He's like, "What can I get you guys a drink?" And then as soon as I go to order that drink, the GM comes over. He's like, "Hey guys, the owner of this restaurant sent out an email and said you guys are specifically not supposed to be here." And
You're
I
not
just
allowed
went,
on the property.
yeah, not allowed on the property. And I just went, "All right, dude, whatever."
I was fuming.
Because she had gotten fired, I quit. But I quit on Christmas Eve. I was like, I'm not coming back. I was like, this is ridiculous. And our regional manager tried to like big dick me. And I was like, bro, you're not going to big dick me.
Dude, I'll tell you, I've never set foot in a PF Chang's ever again. I've never set foot back in there.
Well, we won't. I mean, we're not kicked off the property because there's no way that the owner even knows who we are.
Right.
There's
I was
no way.
gonna say, how
It's been
was that
over a
fallout
year.
for just that's ridiculous.
And it had been like a year.
We had found out later that night that he had talked shit to all of the regulars, and the regulars were texting us. And like, this is what was
Wow.
said.
Yeah,
We
he was
just want you
talking,
to
well,
know.
not even about him. Talking shit about me. He was still, it had been a
Like, let
year.
it go, bro.
That's
It had been
wow.
a year and he was still so butthurt
It wasn't
about
like a year. It was a good 4 months because we were at the place we work at now, but it was like
it had-
springtime.
Okay, it had at least been 6 months.
Yeah, at least been 6 months
But still, 6 months.
because it was warm. I
Get
remember.
over yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
we were just like baffled. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, I tend not to go to
Well,
the
and
old
the
restaurants
wild-
I work at, but
and the wild thing is, I had been in there.
without him
I
there,
had been in there without him there.
yeah,
I had already been in there a couple of times.
You're too
But
popular.
I made sure
I am.
Too popular, Marcus.
But I made sure that like he wasn't there when I went in because I just didn't want to deal with it. Because I was really that was only the second job I'd ever gotten fired from.
Mhm.
And it was super sketchy how I got fired. It felt a lot like bullshit and it felt like a lot of things were made up. And
Dude, why I got fired was complete bullshit.
right, exactly. Like it just was one of those things where like I had been working there for over a year and I had put, in my opinion, I had put my heart and soul
Mm-hmm.
into everything because just like you, I was their yes person. If they needed me to work 55 hours that week, I worked 55 hours that
I
week.
said, "Hell no, I ain't coming in."
I had regulars that knew and loved me. I had delivery regulars that knew
So
and
did I,
loved
yeah.
me.
Mm.
Like I had built an amazing relationship with all these wedding venues that we catered to. And then all of a sudden, it was just,
It became
they decided they didn't like me because I had an attitude, or they decided they didn't like me because
Once they figure out you're somebody who they cannot control anymore,
exactly.
like basically they'll kick you to the curb. Which
Exactly.
I can't honestly believe. Like, I'm grateful for the job I have now. I love my job.
Right.
And I'm not that person anymore.
Mhm.
Like, I say no.
Yeah.
I mean, I still do say yes a
Right.
lot.
Oh, 100%.
But that's because the payoff on that paycheck is worth
Mhm.
saying yes now.
Oh, 100%.
But like, I can't believe that I've kind of like gotten away with as much as I do because I do still say no. Like, I don't let this company run me into the
Right.
ground.
Exactly.
but I will do what you need me to do, and go above
And
and
anything
beyond.
that I'm doing that is above and beyond ultimately is for my group of people
Exactly.
who
Yeah.
I work with. Because now, like, I'm in a situation where if I'm not doing the extra work, no one is making a profit off of it.
Literally.
Exactly. Well, and that's
So,
Yeah.
and
I'm
that's
doing
one of
it
the
for
things.
everybody.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I mean, when we first started working there, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to be your friend, was because
I
I
wanted to be
saw.
Brenton's friend.
Well, I mean, we were automatically friends with Brenton. I'm not joking. I'll come back to what I was going to say, but like when I left my interview for the Palm, Scott had texted me and was like, "Hey, my friend Brenton, you met him and he says he already liked you." So, and it was just one of those things where I was like, "Great, like I already have somebody who's like excited for me to be there."
Well, then I went in there for an interview and he was like, "Well, I like your girlfriend, so and I love Scott, so I love you."
Obviously,
And I was like,
yeah.
all right, cool.
But I wanted to be your friend because I knew that like we had very similar work ethics in the sense that like I aspired, I mean, this sounds so cheesy, but like I aspired to like be a server like you and to like be in the place that you were at because I mean, game recognizes game. Like you had gotten to the point where like you know so much about everything in that restaurant. And like,
and just about serving in general.
In serving in general, like you had gotten to the point where like you don't let the place run your life, but like you run that place.
Well, also we were essaying for you. So like we knew,
right?
Not that like you guys specifically give us the money or whatnot, it, goes into a tip pool, but we knew
who's making the most money. For
exactly.
Right. Yeah. You recognized and helped us become better essays and in turn better servers because you guys were able to like be like, oh, they actually work their asses off and they actually want to do the things to make this place be successful. Yeah. And so you were able to like, feed that into us and like help us out so that we could be successful. Because I mean, there are times where I do miss being an essay and running the place the way that we used to run it because it ran flawlessly some nights.
Oh yeah, we were crushing it for sure.
We crushed it because we had people that understood.
Well, and there was at least one person in every position who was just like leading the way.
Exactly.
Like, there was an example person like in every position at all times for the other people to kind of look at and be like, this is what needs to happen. Yeah. Like, this is the way things need to be done.
Well, it's that leadership that they're missing now. And that's what crumbles ultimately. That's what happened last night. I was like telling you guys when we were standing downstairs is, just put a lot of pressure on Lucas, because, they were short one. And then, the other two that were there were.
And Lucas is a great worker, but he's not a leader.
He's not. He's not a leader.
You have to have a leader. For sure.
Unfortunately, not everybody's a leader.
No.
Well,
I mean, you got to have followers. Because otherwise you don't have a leader. You just have a whole bunch of people yelling at each other. But it just most definitely is one of those things where like the work of being fired from my job, which I'm sure you'll say the same thing. Being fired from that job was what I needed to leave.
Oh, it was a wake up call.
Oh, 100%.
And that's what, like, I was already working part time.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Okay. So I was already at the part time. As a bar back because I was just trying to get.
That's right.
I was trying to get my foot in the door.
Yeah,
just because I knew I didn't want to be at Chang's. And the most like karma thing about the whole situation is I had put my notice in November for my last day would be December 15th. That was going to be my last day. The GM talked me out of it at the time.
Damn.
He was like, "Don't quit. Like we will get better. Like everything's going to change. Da 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 blah da blah blah. What they all say. That's right. Bullshit." I got fired on December 16th.
No shit.
Yep. I got fired the day after my notice was supposed to be up anyway. So it's like, and I don't need to go into all that, but like the way I got fired was just complete bullshit. It was just like basically a whole turn of events where everyone turned on me for like a crazy reason that wasn't even my fault. I'd worked there for 9 years, never had a single write up on file. And I got fired after one write up. And at the end of the day, I think it was just like the world looking out for me and being like, you have to get out of here.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
you are mentally crumbling. This is going to kill you. You're killing yourself.
You're not going to leave. So we're going to make you leave.
At the end of the day, I'm so grateful. Yeah. And I even have still speak to that GM because he has now somehow weaseled his way back into my life in the restaurant business. But
is this Brett?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's Logan's current boss.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I was like, I still interact with him. And we've even had discussions about it where he's like, do you hate me? And I'm like, I don't hate you. I said, I'm grateful for you. I said, because that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I was like, and I wouldn't have like the life with Logan that I have now. I wouldn't have the job I have now. And you're miserable. So fuck you. Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, you have this great job. You're making all this money, but you're alone and no one's your friend. And it's because you've set yourself up for that.
Wow.
And like, I've surrounded myself with better people, a better job. like a better life. And it was
Yeah.
all because you fired me. And thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, no, 100%. Same exact
Yeah.
thing. Like, and again, it's because we give so much of ourselves into our jobs because that's how we were taught.
Yeah.
That's how we were raised. Like,
Well, and it set me up for this job now to be like, I will not be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you want me to work 80 hours a week, great, but you're going to pay me
You're
for
gonna
every
pay me.
minute
Yes.
that I'm in that building.
Yeah.
Whereas like PF Chang, sometimes I would just stop by on my day off and just do a couple things that needed to
Yeah.
be done. And it's like, I don't do that anymore.
right.
Like, I will work my ass off, but I will not work my ass off for free. So you're either going
Exactly.
to compensate me for my time or you're not getting my time.
Yeah.
Whereas like that lesson was a hard lesson learned.
And it is 100%. I mean, we talk all the time about the fact that we as a couple Marcus and I would not have survived if we stayed there.
Yeah, me and Logan wouldn't have either.
And even I don't think we would have survived if he would have stayed and not quit, because that environment was just so toxic for us as a couple, because for
Well,
whatever.
I think Brent can relate. Haley didn't work with us, but like he was just not as happy of a person. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
he would go home and just like be pissed because
Yeah.
you've been working your ass off all day. You'd make $75 and everyone was supposed to be like, and you literally
And
just
you're supposed to
got
be happy.
like your ass handed to you
Yeah.
for the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
shift.
That's the most, like, thinking back now, because we work in fine dining, but like, thinking back now, it's like, dude, $75 is like, was a lot of money for us. Like, we did a hell of a job if we made $75.
Dude, if I made $200 on a double, honey, I thought I was fucking drinking there, balling. Like,
Yeah.
you could have told me shit. Now when I make $200, I'm pissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so true.
How the times change.
It's so true. Now we like, well, and I don't know. It's definitely one of those things where like, I know we get so frustrated with our job, but like
We have a good job.
we
We do.
constantly have to remind ourselves that it could be worse. Like we could still be
Yeah.
where we were at, and
We have a good job. It pays most of the time, pays our
It's-
bills. We have
yeah.
a good group of people. That's the thing. We have a bunch of grown-ups.
yeah,
Like this is the first place I've ever worked where like everyone is an adult.
an adult,
Yeah.
They're
Or you
not
talk to them like an
18.
adult and they're not gonna
They're
be-
not like everyone kind of gets it.
right? And the
And-
people that aren't getting it are starting to kind of
They
like,
leave.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, they push themselves out. Because
yeah.
not that we push them out, but like,
Just no one talks to you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not about like you're not getting bullied. You're not getting anything. You don't exist.
right. It's
Yeah.
well, and that's one of the things that like in the current situation that we're in at work is we're not bullying when we're not talking to you. We
Or
are
pretending you don't exist.
right. We just
Literally.
like for our own safety and for our own like mental health and like honestly, just I would much rather pretend that you do not exist than be a dick to
Then
you.
actually say how
Yeah.
I feel because then we
Exactly.
are going to have a problem.
Because then we will. Because then it
Yeah.
will be
Yeah.
bullying and then I will get written up. Because honestly, me not saying anything to you
is the nicest thing I
is
can
the
do for
best thing that I could do
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
I ride
situation.
that line as well.
100%. All in all, like leaving our old jobs was probably the best thing to ever happen to all of us.
you.
Yeah.
Because we were forced out. You guys left of your own free will.
Yeah.
And like, it definitely
Excuse me.
brought us all. I mean, and it brought us all together. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
We
This is my favorite crew I think I've ever had. Like
Yeah.
a group
I
of
did
friends that I
say
work
that
with.
all the time. I
Yeah.
even
Hands
said
down.
for GM, I was like, this is my favorite crew I've ever worked with. People that I can actually like relate
Yeah.
with or hang out with outside work, and we can say some stuff at work to each other and not agree about something, but like literally
No
drop
one
it.
takes that shit personal.
Yeah.
Like no one
Oh.
takes the stuff at work personal. Like we can get upset about things that happen, but
and
like
then as soon as
as
we
soon as
walk
we
out
clock
the door,
out, we're all hanging out and we're friends
Yeah.
because it's like
Yeah.
we're not friends. Like we were friends because of work, but like I feel like as far as like work people, even if we don't work together, I feel like most of these friendships would still continue.
exactly. And we would make more of because, like, I mean, obviously, like at our old job, we had friends there, and I'm sure you guys did too, where you were like, "Oh, well, we'll stay in touch," and then
Oh, I
Like-
never have been. I just know myself.
right,
I'm not a stay in touch gal.
right. You're not, but like, I mean, I'm sure
No, that's true. Yeah.
you do. Like, you develop friendships at your work, which is good. You develop friendships at your work with
Mhm.
coworkers and stuff, but this is the first group that I'm like,
These are like my friends.
these are my
Yeah,
friends,
Yeah.
my friends.
and I think it's because we're all adults.
Yeah.
Oh, we've
honestly.
got
Well, that's one of the reasons. I mean, ultimately, the money was the main reason, but that was one of the big reasons I turned down the job that they'd offered me for the sales
Right.
position because I wouldn't have been allowed to like interact with anyone outside of work. And I told Alonda, I said, I'm friends with all these people. Like, I see them all the time.
And your brother works with you.
Outside of work. Yeah. Like, but luckily for me, the PF Chang's transition, I didn't have to stay in touch because I just made everyone work with me at my new job.
Right. 100%.
Those she cared about.
Everyone who I cared about, I was like, you have to come work.
Right. Exactly.
And because of that, I mean, the main group of people like you guys and like Lucas, like we all work so well together because like you guys led them to begin with, and now you're leaders here.
Well, and we all communicate in a respectful way. Yeah. Like even when we're frustrated, we're like, hey, like the other day, well, it was probably like 2 months ago when they crushed me. Like I had 2 banquets and then I had a whole section on the floor.
Oh, I remember
and
that.
I was getting crushed.
Yeah.
And Austin and Brent were just standing there talking. I like walked up and I was not the nice. I was like, but if y'all have time, like clearly you do. I need help. Like I'm going down in flames right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they both just like were like, what do you need? And I like handed things out. Like I wasn't being rude. I was drowning.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and you know it means something if Daly comes up to you and is like, I am losing my shit.
It's not often that happens. And
no, dude, they killed me.
There was a essay or a server that was like, hey, that was actually kind of
Jacob. It was Jacob.
Oh, Jacob was the server,
He was like, that was nice to see you in the weeds. That never happens. I was like,
glad you enjoyed the show.
Yeah, it was not a fun time for me.
So glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, they crushed me.
But yeah, we, I mean, I love that you guys are on here and we're talking about this, but we could talk for days. And
we could. Oh my gosh.
I appreciate you guys coming out here and doing this for us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a fun time. So.
There'll be more.
There'll be plenty more episodes we can talk about and more bullshit in the restaurant industry. So
it's never ending.
I know you can talk for days. So.
Same.
You can literally talk for days.
We'll just have a podcast episode where Daly and I just sit on the couch and just like bitch.
Oh yeah.
Rant.
We just hit the tip of the iceberg on the stories we've got from our old job too. So
with everybody. Like we could sink the Titanic with the stories.
Oh, 100%. Especially at the different places that we've worked.
Yeah, I mean, you can always compare those.
And regions. Too. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Chicago, New York, Louisville. You know, it's just even in different places, you have different experiences.
Yeah, this was a good time though.
It was a good time.
Thanks for having us, guys.
We love you guys.
Cheers to you.
Yeah.
And now we gotta go to work.
And now we gotta go make the biscuits.
All right.